Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I am very honored to have Derek Leininger with me. Derek's the owner and founder of Monster Media, an avid hunter, and one of the things that I probably respect about him the most is how he balances all of his priorities in his life and makes time for the things that matter most. So, Derek, thanks so much for being on today, my man.
Philly, we've talked about this for many years. We never knew where I would end up back in the glory days, but we said either one day we were gonna write a book together, or do podcasts, or do something, and you here we are.
We're at least going to get the podcast done today. The book will come. In anticipation of this, I had to go to the archives.
Oh God. Oh man, you are a friend, man. You kept the good stuff.
2015, September of 2015. And you thought you were living the dream then. And we'll hear more about that today.
For sure. Yeah, that was I thought that was the peak of my life, but that was a very, very much just a small dot on the blip of the radar. So
Yes, sir. Well, so let's kick it off. Growing up, we grew up in a small town, and I think something that you have today is a really strong work ethic. So, growing up, was there anything early in life that really instilled a work ethic for you, or any moments in life that instilled that for you?
yeah, I think just my parents, man. Both my parents. My dad was a mechanic my whole life and worked his butt off, and he'd come home and work on people's cars. And my mom, uh, in my younger years, worked at the factory, the Tenneco Walker, the muffler manufacturing place, and she was on night shift. Uh, and then she got more into office jobs later in life, and but still just my family, my one of my cousins that kind of got me into hunting, and I looked up to growing up, was a farmer, still is a farmer, very successful farmer, and just being around them, helping with fence, helping with cattle, watching my dad work, helping my dad rebuild cars, fix cars in the garage. Just that's kind of all I knew. And then getting into high school in our working years, I did tasseled and worked construction. I roofed every summer through high school and college, through high school. But yeah, just that's all I really knew was kind of, I mean, blue collar work, and I figured that's what I was going to do my whole life.
Yeah. Well, so one thing along the way, a couple friends of yours decided, hey, Derek, we like to bow hunt. You should get into this bow hunting thing. And they take you to get a bow. So talk a little bit about, getting into hunting, because I don't think you were hunting from day one.
No, I'd always my cousin Tyler, that the farmer, he had taken me upland bird hunting, and I'd always go sit with him deer hunting, rifle hunting, just the 10 days a year that rifle season is. And then my good friends Kate and Bruce, they'd been shooting bows for a while, and Bruce took me to Cabela's to buy a bow, and then we got it all set up there, and then it turned into an obsession where we would shoot every day after school, and me and Cade would just be super competitive and try and shoot quarters from 60 yards out. And just we ended up calling we created a name, like a group name, called Twin Bin Archery. If you know where the bins are at, we used to party back down at the bins back in the day. But yeah, it became just a huge obsession in my life, man. And then once I got into bow hunting whitetails, there's just something in my gut that it became that an obsession, and I just always had an itch to, that's what I wanted to do for a living. But growing up in Seward and just the small town, your parents and everyone's like, get a good job, good benefits. It was just a dream, and yeah, but that's where that kind of all began.
Now, in the world of hunting, it's looked a lot different over time. I remember growing up, my uncle was big into hunting, and people would produce a video if you were like the top hunter, and you could watch, these guys on the elaborate hunts. And so you had gotten a little bit intrigued by watching other hunters, and so you started to, with a video camera, videotape some wildlife activity. So talk a little about getting into the world of videography and photography for you.
Yeah, so I'd always watch hunting shows growing up on the Outdoor Channel, and when the YouTube came out, when the internet came out and YouTube, and there's a lot more avenues for average Joes and people to create content, make hunting episodes, film their hunts. Heartland Bow Hunter, I believe they were on Vimeo at the time, but I came across Heartland Bowhunter, and they are a cinematic. They created their content off of like movie style, where the different types of shots and more storytelling. It wasn't just Joe in the trees telling you what way the wind was blowing, and that they were deer hunting and a deer came by and they shot it and that was it. This was talking about how they hunt with their family, and they would pick one specific deer and film it over 3 years and then make one episode just a story and the quality of the footage. And I became overly infatuated with Heartland Bowhunter, and then they came out with the film school, and that was kind of when my in the outdoor world, that's when it was like, man, I this is what I want to do, and I started chasing it.
Now, I want to ask you about that because, for a lot of people, the idea of taking their own money, their own time, resources from their day job, right, to go invest money into something that is really at this point more of a passion for you than it really
Yeah.
is a business venture, seems crazy, right? It's like, Derek, why the heck would you do that? But for you, there was like a passion for more. So talk a little bit about being willing to, venture into something, even though maybe from outside perspectives, you're like, what the heck are you spending the money for?
Yeah, for sure. So no, I remember my good best man at my wedding, Joey. He's the one that really took me to the next level, I would say, as far as deer management, being a smart hunter, in those ways. I just remember walking in the woods down at Hebron, where some of the spots that we hunt, and I would talk. I was like, man, just think if we could do this every day and get paid to do it. And uh, God bless him, he's still one of my best friends in the world. But he was like, man, you got to have a lot of money. You got to know people. And in my head, I never said it out loud, but I was just like, man, shut up. Like, I'm going to figure this out. And that was right after high school. That was college. Me and him met in college. But, and then I think working in the blue collar world, I worked at Monsanto for a few years. I worked at a machine shop. I went to school for machine tool and die. And just always had this burning in my gut. I went through some pretty horrific um, job adventures in my life, and I just had always had that burning in my gut that, man, I just got to figure out a way somehow that I can hunt essentially for a living, or be able to afford to take off whenever I want to hunt. And as you know, some of the events that jobs that I got, people I met, it's led up to that. But just all the ups and the downs of the good jobs, the bad jobs, the relationships and everything. And just, as the podcast is called, who knew in the moment, that all these past things lined up so that the perfect timing could happen. And I got some good stories to talk about on that part. But yeah, it became an overly crazy obsession, and it's like you said, it's worked out.
Yeah. Well, so now as we're progressing, you're starting to get into, I mean, you're avid hunter, you're getting into, photography, videography. And in 2012, cute blonde gal gets your eye. So talk a little bit about, meeting Katie, because she ends up being a very important part of the story.
Yeah, so my wife Katie, obviously the best thing that happened to me. Her and the boys that she had before we met changed my life. I'll kind of start the story from there, where
Yeah.
I was in a long-term relationship all through high school, middle school, high school, and college. Actually got engaged and broke it off 2 weeks before the wedding. And the old country song, "Thank God for Unanswered Prayers." But uh, I felt like that's kind of when my life got weird, or I shouldn't say weird, but it got messy. I was lost. You're with someone in a relationship for so long, and things weren't going good. So then, yeah, I was single, started drinking way too much, hanging out with the wrong people, went down some pretty dark roads, man. And I just remember making a lot of horrible decisions that thankfully I never got thrown in jail and never got in an accident or so on and so forth. But then, yeah, I went to the Creek Cardinals class of 2007. I think it was their 5 year reunion. It would have been 5 year, yeah, 5 year reunion. my good buddy Cam Duba. I was working with him out at Monsanto, and he's like, "Hey, our class reunion's down in Kramer, Nebraska," and went down there, and just like a movie scene, I walked in the bar down at Kramer and saw the cute blonde girl in the back, and I had no intentions of finding my wife that night, but saw her, made some small talk, and then just the next day we hung out. I took her to lunch to Burger King, and because I was balling on a budget back then for sure. Um, those were the days that I was not intelligent with my money and still. I remember going to paycheck advance, man, and just to survive sometimes.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's kind of all. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but just when she met me, like I said, I was a mess. And I think her having the two kids, Kate and Cole, now they're my sons. Um, but it just everything got better slowly but surely from there on out. We lived in her sister's basement. I had a house over by Waco, but we didn't move in yet because of the boys together. And then yeah, she was living in her sister's basement in Crete, and I was driving back and forth from Monsanto to Crete, and then progressively she moved into our house in Waco. Her and the boys did, and after Monsanto, I got a seed job with Stein Seed, and that lasted a very short amount of time. Just wasn't the place I was supposed to be. I remember getting fired in the McDonald's parking lot about 3 days before Christmas, after I just bought a brand new truck, and man, it was a mess. That was probably the lowest, one of the lower points in my life, where I jobless, had now a fiance and two kids to take care of, and didn't really know what to do. But that's when I think I grew a lot personally, and that burning in my gut was like, don't just go get another job. I remember being unemployed for, at that point, 6, 7, 8 months. I can't remember. Honestly, I try to forget, but it might have been longer than that. But I would just working on a fencing crew and taking up odd jobs just to pay the bills. And then Katie and I moved to Garland, bought a little house, and I couldn't even be on the loan papers because my stuff was so bad. And uh, I think I had to borrow some money from you, Phil. It
That
was
might have
only for
happened.
like a week. But it's just, I want to talk about all this stuff or sales stuff because fear is the only thing that will stop you. You know, I think the bigger the dreams you have, the more obstacles and the more, uh, you know, speed bumps you're going to hit through life. And God tests us so that we're prepared for the moments so we never go back to the horrible decisions that we made. So yeah, Katie and I, we're in Garland. Things are going, still don't have a job. And then we got married. I didn't have a job. That was 2014. And then I got a job at the co-op, um, CBA co-op, and I was a agronomist and a salesman. And that job lasted about a year, but that period right there is when I was just all in on finding my dream job. And I went to that Heartland Bowhunter Film School. It cost $1,000 for 3 days to go down to Kansas City to Bass Pro and learn how to run a camera the Heartland Bowhunter way in 3 days. And that's when things really started to turn around. I met those guys, started filming for Trent, one of the HP guys, for the next 2 to 3 years for free. I was driving down to Council Grove, Kansas, and filming him, and just out of my, out of my own pocket, and just I was trying. I thought those guys were movie stars at the time, so I was like, man, I'm filming for Heartland Bowhunter. This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Then that kind of progressed, and what. So I was still at the co-op, and then I went to the film school, filmed for a couple years, and then Jeff and David Lindsay, which is now the Lindsay Way show on the Outdoor Channel. I think they're on like season 7 now, 7 or 8. But they had approached the HB guys about producing their show because HB has HB Productions where they make commercials. They final edit a lot of hunting shows out there, a handful of hunting shows, and the Lindsay Way was one of them. But Dave and Jeff had gone to Mike Hunsucker and said, "Hey, we want you guys to produce our show. Do you know a camera guy that knows how to run a camera, might know how to do some farm work?" And with the relationship that I built with those guys over the last couple years in that time, they gave them my name, and it kind of that's a great story right there because that was one of the times where that's where I'd like to say I found God for real. I went to St.
Yeah.
John's and all that, in Seward and have always believed in God, but I think there's a difference between believing God and then putting, your full trust in God. And
Yeah.
when Jeff had reached out to me the first time. We hit it off. We talked for like 3.5 hours, the very first phone call. And he's like, man, let me think about it tonight and I'll get back to you tomorrow and see if I can come up with something. Cause he was gonna discuss pay and travel and just how we were gonna set this all up. And man, I was still working at the co-op. I remember it was wild because I remember it like yesterday. It was one of the biggest changing moments in my life. I was standing in a field, reverse a little bit. Jeff hadn't called me back overnight. He waited like 3 more days, and I was just freaking out, not sleeping at night. I actually think I got shingles that time because I was stressing out so bad, and just losing sleep about it. And I was standing in a field just east of my house here, and the funny thing about all this is it's like all the people that were involved in this like the Steve Clausen, my very first boss he owns a
Yeah.
machine shop just east of town. It was in his field that I had quit him to go to Monsanto. So I was in Steve Clausen's field, my very first full-time job boss. We were still good buddies, but I was uh, checking his beans out and seeing if there was any bugs. And I just remember like, I hate this. Like, I don't care about I love agriculture, but I don't care about, plant health and all this stuff. And Jeff was supposed to be calling me back. It was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I threw my clipboard down, man. And I just looked up and I was like, God, like, give me a sign. Like, what am I supposed to do? I was just burnt out with the co-op already, waiting for Jeff to call me back. I picked up my clipboard, finished walking the field, got in my truck, and is like, as soon as I slam the door, my phone starts ringing and it says Jeff Lindsay. And I'm just like, okay, God, like you got me here. And so Jeff called, offered me the job. And then so yeah, that was I would say, like I said, when I learned when you truly put him in control and ask it out loud on your knees, I think he pushes you to those limits so who's in control. And then yeah, I got the job and yeah, we're at the Lindsay way and I've got my dream job, so to say, and back to the newspaper, living the dream. I was like, I
Yeah.
felt like a rock star. I felt like, that was the peak of my life at the time.
Well, so one thing I want to highlight in your story, as you've gone through it, that I think is an amazing quality of yours, and someone listening needs to apply this to their life is I think you've always found a way to enjoy where you're at, but not lose sight of where you want to go. I remember when you were, yeah, on your own dollar driving to film for Trent, and you were stoked about it. Like you were legitimately excited about the opportunity to do that. And it's like, Derek, you
I'm
you
losing
realize
money.
you're doing it for free. Like, I mean, it's actually costing you money to go do this, right? But like, you just loved it, but you still had the sight of like, but I could do it someday as a career. And so, talk a little bit about that. Finding joy in the things, but never losing sight of the ultimate goal that you're going towards.
Yeah, it's something that I'm fighting right now. Is a conversation that I have is, with a lot of mentors and friends and and is that contentment and enjoying what you have in front of you, because if you can't enjoy what you have in front of you, God's never going to give you the bigger things. Like you have to appreciate what's here, and that's a battle every single day for me. But yeah, I think just I've always been taught, you know now I didn't know it as this way back then, but now, your network is your net worth. And I knew if I shook enough hands, if I met enough people, like I would find ways to get to that next level. And I remember when I didn't have a job and I was doing interviews and I really, really wanted this one job for a deer food plot seed company, Arrow Seed out of Western Nebraska. And that guy's like, man, he's like, I don't think you're the fit for me, but he looked me dead in the eyes and said, he's like, you're going to do something with your life. And at the time I was like, he told me he wasn't giving me the job. So that was in one ear out the other. But then I had like two other people in that time period tell me that same thing. So I just, I knew if I kept working my butt off, no matter how bad my luck was or how, what situation, if I just kept my eyes on the prize and dealt with the situation, keep making enough money to support my family, no matter what job I had to do to get it done. Everything I did was legal, but no, just you got to enjoy life because I think that's one thing we take for granted as a society today is like we're gonna die,
Yeah.
in whether it's tomorrow, tonight, tomorrow, like there's no reason to hold back on your dreams and your ambitions because it's the only one in control of that is you. If you're not progressively, I hear so many times like, man, I'm just gonna save up for 10 years and then I'll buy that piece of ground or I'll do that. It's like 10 years, like, dude, you're not guaranteed anything, let alone 10 years. So yeah, I think surrounding yourself with good people that encourage you. I had a lot of people that were like, man, you're crazy and whatever. And I had some nicknames growing up that I didn't care like back then, but they did get to me
Yeah.
internally. And I just had this vendetta, man, to prove everybody wrong. And that's not, I'm not on a revenge tour or was never on a revenge tour, but yeah, I was just like, you I earned that nickname back in the day, but now it's like, I screw you guys. But no, I don't think like that. But yeah, just you can't you can't get too far ahead. You can't get too deep into the good, the bad, but just living for each day. Like I said, I'm not an expert at it. I complain about stupid stuff. We're just it's human nature. But
Yeah.
yeah, just continue, just take steps forward. Like you're gonna take steps back, or there's gonna be problems, there's gonna be issues, but just keep going forward and smile every day. That was one thing that my dad taught me. I think that I've taken to heart for my whole life is make sure you make other people laugh and smile. And everyone you run into, whether it's the cashier at the gas station or it's like, how are you doing today? Like we don't have enough of that in this world today where people need to know that they're cared about. And like I said, I just try to pass on the positive vibes and enjoy the day. And you never know when the next phone call could be another investment opportunity, or it's just be positive and keep working your butt off.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned it earlier, and I just want to ask this about, for you and Katie, throughout your guys' relationship, there's been a lot of changes, for lack of a better term, right? There's been a lot of
Yeah.
changes over that entirety of the time. And, so frequently people say the most important decision you're ever going to make is who you end up with, as a spouse in life. And, I think as guys, I mean, as people, right, we have a little bit of an ego where, you don't want to maybe seem vulnerable or seem in a low moment. But you said, well, gosh, I'm engaged to this girl. I'm trying to, help parent as a dad. And I feel like I'm at my lowest moment. So talk a little bit about just for the two of you, like being there for each other in that moment, but then each moment thereafter, because once again, there's been a lot of changes over the last, what, 11 years now?
Yeah, don't yeah, well, 10-year anniversary, but yeah, together 11. But yeah, so I mean, man, I was not a good person when we first met. I was still, I would say, very immature, and I had anger issues back in the day. And she's a tough little girl. Yeah, I wouldn't want to fight her in a dark alley, but yeah, she's definitely what has I would give her full credit for my success. And like you said, one of the most important decisions you make in your life as far as a spouse is someone that's going to support you and all that. And man, I've done some insane things with no money in my bank account and all this, and she never flinched. I mean, she would ask me like, "This is smart" or whatever. Like, just trust me, I'll figure it out. And as the years have gone by, man, now I just do things and I tell her, and she's like, whatever. Like I trust that you're gonna get us through this. But yeah, man, we went through a lot of rough patches, I think, as any, 5, 10 year marriage can vouch for. Like not every day is rainbows and butterflies. How to parent, dealing with finances, buying, she bought the house on her own in Garland, and then in Seward, just, we should build a house and just all the thing. Like you said, we've gone from living in a basement to an 800 square foot house in one of the probably top 25 smallest villages in the state of Nebraska. And then had a beautiful home in Seward, and then got to, we just recently built 2 years ago on our, one of my biggest dreams was to be able to hunt my backyard. And we did that. And I think that, um, she's called me crazy the whole way. Like, she's like, can we afford this? Can we afford this? I'm like, well, I'll figure it out. That's my famous saying is I'll figure it out. And we have, but yeah, she's stuck with me through every situation, has always been there when she should have left me a long time ago. In all reality, it worked out good for her.
Thanks for
Uh,
saying, Katie.
yeah, she's upstairs listening, I'm sure, but no, so yeah, now, but yeah, things come full circle, man. One of my dreams was that she could be able to be stay at home, and she's just went part time this August. I didn't think she could stay home full time yet. She'd get too bored. So she's still working with the Lev Rat guys part time, a couple days a week for a few hours. But yeah, I feel like I owe it to her for sticking by my side all these times and signing her name on way too many loan documents for investment opportunities and stuff with not having a clue what's going on. And just, hey, we'll figure it out. And yeah, I think uh, just we're at a great place right now. We got, the twins and Dawson, and life is good. And yeah, it's like I said, she's a strong, strong woman, and she's stood by my side through all the BS.
I love it. Now, as you're filming with the Lindsay Way crew, you're also doing like weddings and kind of that entrepreneurial side of things, right? Additional income, hey, I can make that on a weekend. And so you start to see it being less of I'm working for someone and I'm starting to kind of create what could be a business. So talk a little bit about that season of life where, you're working for someone, but you're also starting to do things on your own.
Yeah, so yeah, I got my dream job. The Lindsay Way was amazing for the first, I would say, the 3 years, and then the third year, I think I filmed for them for 4 years. Um, we had Dawson. I think that was the game changer. But so yeah, when I was working for the Lindsays, I had the summers off pretty much. I would help with farm management. They had farms in multiple states, so I was kind of running all over the place. But I was gone 120 days a year, and in the beginning, you're completely oblivious to how much you're gone because I was still starstruck and blinded by I'm hunting for a living. And I think it comes maturity. You got a family, being gone that much. It's like, man, this is not gonna last forever. So yeah, I started filming weddings right away that after the first season. And I think I was charging like anywhere from $800 and then up to a 2,500 when I started getting better at it. But yeah, filming every weekend that I could. And my next goal was, I was like, man, I just want to make 100 grand a year and own a farm. Like those were my next two big goals. And I had filmed weddings, I think third or fourth year of filming the Lindsay Way. And we just had Dawson, and Jeff and I had a pretty emotional phone call. He essentially let me go, and I agreed that like we're on the same page because I had three boys now at home, and it was right before hunting season, so I essentially went jobless again. I can't remember what year that was, 2016, 15, somewhere in there. No, it was probably like 2018, 19, because 2020 is when I started, but
Yeah.
the teens of the 2000s, somewhere in there. And yeah, we both cried. We became such good friends, man, and we spent so much time. I mean, I spent more time with him than I did with my own family for those years, and it was super emotional. And but that was the next step of life for me was, do I go back to the corporate world, or do I try and start my own thing? And I was just so confused, and I started reaching out to people, and I kind of caved to what my stomach told me not to do. I went and filmed another hunting show for that year. So yeah, that was 2019. Went and filmed another show, and the whole time I had been interviewing with these guys, my stomach was like, don't do it. Like, do
Mhm.
not do it. And that was the first time that I think I succumbed to fear of going broke and not having any money. And I just took the job, and it was probably one of the top three worst experiences of my life, just being away from my family again. And just some experience that that I had along the way. And so January 2020, I quit, or January 2019. Wait, where are we at? December 2019,
Yep.
January 2020, we went to a trade show and I'm like, I was done. I was done with filming. I actually hated hunting at the moment. I didn't want to hunt anymore, even for for myself. I was just completely burnt out. So go home from the trade show and I'm back to ground zero. No idea what I'm gonna do. No job. Here we are again. And then like 4 days in a row, I had guys reach out that I met in the hunting industry that knew my situation. They're like, dude, just start your own thing. Like, you're so good at what you do, and just do it. Just do your own thing. And then enough people told me, and my gut was like, I was like, okay, I guess I got to do my own thing. I have no idea what the heck I'm gonna do, but we're gonna figure it out, and whatever happens. So then, yeah, I can't remember. Met with a good buddy, Futures One, Mark. He's actually one of my partners now, and um, talked to him about making some from farmer testimonials for Futures One because they had just had a bunch of testimonials made, and it was an astronomical amount of money for what they got, and it took like 3 months to get it back. And I told him what I could do, and I was like, I'll just charge you $1,500, and did it, sent him the stuff, went and filmed it one day, edited it that night, sent it to him the next day, and the phone rang. Like, and he's like, man, like, how did you do this? And I'm like, well, that's what we did in the hunting industry. We went and filmed all day and made these videos and sent it out the next day. And that was kind of when things started to click of finding a niche in the marketing world. And that was kind of the beginning of, it was Long Time LLC at the time,
Yeah.
fully manned by myself. And that's when COVID hit too. So uh, looking back, no one knew it was going to be as crazy as it was. But I can say that COVID was the best thing that happened for my business, for our business back then, looking back. But yeah, that's kind of the tale of that whole part of my life.
Yeah. So as you're going into now purely running your own business, once again, there's a level of crazy that it takes to run a company because at the end of the day, there's no guarantee of a paycheck. You've got three kids at home, right? I mean, you've got a wife that is working, but once again, you want to help provide. And so I think as we look at that, there's probably all of the reasons to not do it, right? But there's one or two things that stick out to you. One is you still have passion for it. And two, you have some key people in your life giving you feedback, really validating you. And you listen to that opposed to listening to negativity, random thoughts. And so talk a little about, taking that step. And it's not a matter of if you're going to have doubts or not. Like, you're going to have doubts whenever you start a business, but being
Yeah.
willing to like work through the doubts and focus ahead.
Yeah. So that very first project worked out, and then I knew camera videography, like it's my passion. I just come so naturally on, you've seen the stuff that I produce and whatnot. Like, it comes so effortlessly. I've just was God gave me a gift, and I was like, knew that that's what I wanted to do with my life. So when you figure that out, I think that's what we as humans struggle for most. Like, what's our purpose? What job am I supposed to do for the rest of my life? And I think we are, forced at too young of an age to try and figure that out. But to never give up on finding your purpose, whether you're 19 or you're 39, like, just if there's something in your gut and it's passionate, just do that. But so yeah, so filmed the first video, knew I was onto something. So then I chicken scratched some ideas on coming up with a retainer where I would come into these businesses and create content. It was at this time, it was just video photography and then running their Facebook page. So I came up with these monthly subscriptions, and I just started hitting the phone, using my network, setting up meetings because everyone had gotten shut down at the time in social media. This was, at the time, you weren't supposed to meet in person. You weren't supposed to do anything. Business was shut down. So social media was the only way to market your business. And that was when I think social media finally became the biggest tool. I tried starting this business, was it 4 years prior, 5 years prior? And I remember every meeting I had, it's like, that's shit's for kids and you can't advertise, you can't get business off of Facebook. And now it's super funny to look back at that.
Oh.
But yeah, so started meeting with people for just those things. I would run their social media, come out once a month to get video and photos to post on social and help them with their stuff. And I remember one week, I think it was one day, I had got like 12 businesses to sign up for 500 to $1,000 a month. And that's when I just sat back and it was like that aha moment in a movie when you're kind of pinching yourselves like, man, I'm going to make more a month than I was a year if I keep this up. And that's when I just ran with it and had no idea what the heck I was doing. We created an LLC on LegalZoom, and I'd known how to do taxes and all that stuff, but I had no idea what the heck I was doing running a business, and just ran with the punches, man. We learned a lot of lessons, but yeah, so from then, that was 2020 till now, we have around 60 clients in 3 states and six uh contractors, employees that are on the team now, and it's just exploded like a rocket ship, and still just cannot believe it's only been 4 years since we started this thing. And it's turned into what it has, and there's no end in sight. I think we're just getting started, and I want to take it kind of nationally and get into more states and more businesses. And it's a very, easy business model to replicate, or business, yeah, the state to state, business to business, and see how big we can make this thing.
Now, within Monster, one of the things that I think is great is how customizable it is to the clients that you're working with, right? Some folks, or some agencies, I should say, it's kind of like, hey, this is how we do it. And you
A, B, or
either,
C.
yeah, you either do it or you don't. And you guys are very much more like, hey, let's get to know the business. And then from there, all right, what can we do for you? So talk a little bit about that approach to business for you guys and how, that's in my opinion, helped you guys bring on clients because it's like, well, you're truly trying to help my business, not figuring out how my business fits into your business model.
Yeah, for sure. I think that piece kind of goes back when I was talking about all the, I worked in machine tool and die, I worked construction, I worked agriculture, um, the hunting industry, and got to mingle with business people, and the good and the bad of that. Working for corporate America, Monsanto, Bayer, the biggest ag company in the entire world, and how miserable corporate America is, and just taking all my life experiences and creating a business model that doesn't handcuff the clients. It doesn't handcuff our employees. Like, our employees are able to work from home or their car, or as long as they got their camera and a computer with them, they can work anywhere. But for the client, yeah, it's like we've done everything from Aurora Co-op, agriculture, to women's boutiques, to plumbing, electrical. We can, our business model fits everybody, and I think I go in. Monster's model is we have pricing, but it's not set in stone. Like, these are the ballparks. It's like, all right, if you can't afford this, like, we're gonna create you a model that works for you, and then hopefully we help grow your business that you can afford to pay for all the extra things within a short amount of time. But yeah, I think we have no contract, month to month deal. We always say, if you don't want to work with us, or if it's not working out, then we probably shouldn't be working together. So that's why we don't handcuff them into a 6 month, 12-month contract. It's, hey, if this works, we're going to keep working together. And if it doesn't, then we probably should, because I don't want to work with you if you don't like me, and vice versa. And it's worked out really well, because we have to earn our keep, because we don't want a client just to, the turnover to be extreme, where, we only have clients for 2 months. We got to go find a new client. They're only here for 2 months, new client. We've been fortunate to have, I would say, 70-80% of our clientele stay on since day one. And some have started and stopped. We deal with a lot of seasonal businesses that um, crank things down in the wintertime and crank it back up in the spring. But yeah, it's been super flexible, and it's worked for every business under the sun. Like, we work with $1 billion companies, and we work with people that their businesses make 100 grand a year. It's been pretty awesome to be able to not close ourselves in a corner where we only work with ag, or we only work with insurance, where at all times in business in the world, like, different parts are thriving at different times. So having our fingers in all that, it's been consistent business and consistent success for us year after year.
Now, within your business, one of the things that it's given you the opportunity to do is one of the things that you really wanted to do, and that is to be able to hunt and do different trips. And you've gone on some immaculate trips. And something that's fun to see from a very far distance is how excited you used to be to go film people doing those hunts, and now you getting to be the one doing the hunt. So talk a little about, just that realization of you're starting to be able to do the things that you always dreamt of being able to do. And then you talked about it earlier, people say, oh, well, I'll do it someday. And you're doing it today. So just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, my ultimate goal was to create more, I think every entrepreneur's goal is or should be, if it's not, to buy more time. And I've been so fortunate, man, to have like build the most incredible young team for Monster that allows me to leave for a week or two at a time, or uh, you know, Monster has brought, success has brought on more opportunity where we've gotten into some real estate. You know what that's all about. We've gotten into the rental game and some Kansas land real estate and kind of blowing that up. But with Monster kind of being, I don't want to say cruise control because I don't want to be too comfortable. Like we're always trying to grow month after month, but we have in just 4 years been able to get where I can go hunting, um, pretty or on a fishing trip or whatever, pretty much whenever I want, and it's like it's been incredible. It's I'm only 30. I'll be 36 in 2 weeks, but to get Monster where it's been or where it is in such a short amount of time and find the people, which that's kind of crazy too, is uh, all the people that help me run Monster are either from Seward or I've just bought something off of Facebook Marketplace for them, or uh, it, just random stuff. And it's crazy how those people came across. But yeah, this is probably the second year, first real year that I've been able to completely, kind of dive more into real estate and trust that Grant and the team will take care of a Monster when I'm gone. And yeah, it's been very humbling and feel blessed as ever that it's been able to work out this way in extremely short amount of time. It usually takes 5 years, I think, is what the national average to get a business even to cash flow. And we've been able to do it we were net positive after the first year. And it's, like I said, we've almost doubled in size every single year since then and looking to do that again this year. And yeah, it's God is good, man.
So, on that note, and you said this earlier, faith life, there's a difference between believing that there is a God and having, faith in your God. And I think, for a lot of people, faith can come at different moments in time, right? Sometimes it's, hey, you got to hit a rock bottom moment, and you're like, well, I guess there's only one other option here. I'll see if that works. And other times, the faith can be strengthened in growth. And I think for you, you've probably had it in both. You know, there was a time where you're like, well, there's got to be something more to the life than what's going on. And there's other
Yeah.
times where you're like, well, this is only possible because there's something bigger than me at work here. So talk a little bit about that for your faith life, just having kind of both perspectives.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is my my uncle is a very successful businessman. He sold a business for a lot of money back in the day, and I remember him. The stories of him, I personally don't remember, but he was on food stamps. Had I think well, I can't even remember 4 kids, 5 kids. Started a business from scratch and then sold it for I think it was 20, a lot of money. And when I started getting successful, I had lunch with him and just kind of told him everything. And he just looked me dead in the face and said, "Don't ever forget whose money that is." He's like, "It's God's money.
Mm.
And if you don't do good with God's money, like he'll take it away from you as fast as he gave it to you." And I've tried, obviously we're all humans and sometimes that gets lost in the blur, but I can say that I say tell myself that probably every day, at one period of time in my head, like just if there's an opportunity to help somebody, um that God's only going to give you as much as you can handle. And I have, I mean, most recently felt like I've been tested. I don't have any patience whatsoever. So like we built our house and I wanted a shop and I was like, I'll build a shop in 5 years. And 6 months later, there's a shop out front. And I have put myself out there a little more vulnerable than is probably smart these last 12 to 18 months. And I have felt like it's been a test going back to the very first piece we talked about, being content with where you're at and what you have, and not overlooking. I remember when all of this 10 years ago, this right here, like the job, making 100 grand a year, building a house where I could go hunt the backyard. Like I said, if I got those things, like I could die, my life is over. And it's like, well, that all happened in 7 years. So it's like, now what? And I think God has put me to the test here on like slow it down. Like you don't have to accomplish the next 10 years. And just leaning on prayer and guys like you, Phil, like you said, you've been with me for this whole ride and just surrounding yourself by educated people on decision making and praying that God puts people like you and some of the guys that have came across my life that you can get educated and lean on your faith that there's going to be opportunities that you learn from, um, good and bad. I think a lot of failures happen so that you learn and you can become 10 times more successful. But uh, yeah, the bigger you grow, the harder the falls, the more the higher dollar amount that you throw out there is bigger and bigger, more ground, more rental houses, so on and so. Like it's baby steps. He's going to give it to you when the time is right and when he feels like he's like, all right, now he's not going to screw this up. Now I can give this to him. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at right now, is fully depending on God to continue to guide me. Because like I said, I'm at where I thought I could die. I thought this was where I'd be at 65, not 35. So, um, and to pass it to the next guy down, I think that's been one of my biggest enjoyments now too, is buddies that never dreamed of buying ground. I've bought ground with guys in Kansas. Me and you have bought ground together, man, and what we've been able to do with that and have these kind of conversations and helping other people um understand that it is possible to just take the leap of faith and go chase after something, and it's not as hard as you think it is. And I think that's kind of my one of my next thing is to do what you've done for me to the next people down the list, is be a mentor where my strengths are at, and encourage people to take the leap of faith and trust God and um live your life, man. Like we've talked, like today could be our last day. And that's probably one of the things that I tell everyone the most. It's like, don't save for 10 years from now. Like, let's figure this out. Let's do this in the next 6 months, or, we're not guaranteed. And I just think that's the biggest driver from this whole conversation. Anyone that listens to this is, don't take life for granted. We've all had close people die, friends pass away, parents, grandparents. We could find out tomorrow, that you got cancer. If you fail, if you go broke, you're going to figure it out. There's plenty of jobs out there. I think your biggest, you know, regret, everyone said it in every motivational podcast out there, is like, you don't want to be on your deathbed and be like, man, I wish I would have tried that. It's like, I want to be freaking, man, I don't care if I go bankrupt trying to live my dream. Like I'll figure it out, man. Well, there'll be a new way.
Yep. I love it. Well, Derek, the journey thus far has been amazing. I appreciate you sharing it. I'm excited to continue to watch it. And, I can't wait for 3 years from now when we're recording again and highlighting all the things that have grown and allowed Monster to grow even more. But keep doing all the great things, man. I appreciate you.
You too, buddy.